Hey, thanks so much for finding the video. Do us a favor. If you haven't done so yet, please subscribe. And be sure to leave your comment. We love to interact. Enjoy the video. Couple of items regarding the New Orleans Saints staff I want to delve into. One is an apparent addition. A lot of reports today, I believe NFL Network was the first to have it, that Kris Richard is going to join the Saints staff. You'll probably remember Kris Richard. He's actually around here, been known more because of his ties to USC. A lot of people thought perhaps Ed Orgeron would pursue Kris Richard to be his defensive coordinator at LSU one of the past 2 seasons, which did not happen. But now it appears Richard is going to join the New Orleans Saints. Ian Rappaport had this earlier today. Saints are adding a big-time name on their defensive staff. Sources say they'll hire former Seahawks DC and Cowboys assistant Kris Richard as their new secondary coach. He fills the spot previously held by Aaron Glenn in Dennis Allen's defense. So, just a quick reminder, if you're not familiar with Richard, coached at USC for a couple of years under Pete Carroll in the late 2000s. When Pete Carroll got the Seattle job, Kris Richard went to Seattle with Pete Carroll as his secondaries coach. He was the secondaries coach in the Legion of Boom years. He had Richard Sherman and Earl Thomas and Cam Chancellor and Brandon Browner and then Byron Marshall. Like, he was the DB's coach. And then, of course, Dan Quinn was the DC, gets the Falcons head coaching job. Pete Carroll elevates Richard to DC in Seattle. And his first year as DC in 2015, they had the number 1 scoring defense in the league. The next year, they had the number 3 scoring defense in the NFL, and then went to the number 13 scoring defense in the NFL. So they saw a bit of a regression, and then he was fired. And it is worth noting that in those years, he still had Sherman and Thomas and Chancellor and Marshall. So that secondary was still intact there, although the nucleus of that Seattle defense really was broken apart after they had to pay Russell Wilson. I mean, we've talked about that plenty, but that's just kind of how that happened. They had their window where they had an elite quarterback on a third-round NFL rookie deal, so they could pay a lot of other guys. When they had to pay Russ, they had to make other cuts, and they broke apart the nucleus of that defense. But Richard still has a fantastic name, plenty of experience, had a lot of success as a secondaries coach, was in Dallas the following 2 seasons in 18 and 19. And then, of course, when Jason Garrett was fired, that staff was replaced, and Kris Richard was out of football for this past year. And now it looks like he's jumping back in with New Orleans. Still a young guy in his early 40s, a guy that was the secondaries coach of one of the most elite secondaries we've seen in recent memory in the NFL with the Legion of Boom. Certainly has that track record. Comes to New Orleans in a situation where you already have a stable defensive coordinator in place, who, by the way, his specialty is the secondary, and Dennis Allen. So those two could work very well together. I like this move a lot. It's a guy with a ton of experience, college and pro. He's been a defensive coordinator. He's been in the NFC. And just when you look at the talent the Saints have, there are questions in the secondary. Of course, Marshawn Lattimore is going to be back, and I'll maintain Malcolm Jenkins is going to be back because it would cost you more to cut him than not have him back, or than to have him back, rather. And Malcolm Jenkins played really well in the second half of the year. Once he kind of maybe got those air quotes old legs moving and figured out this defense and reacclimated, Malcolm Jenkins played well. The bigger questions are you going to be able to sign Marcus Williams, which seems to be a major priority for this organization? And then what do you do with Janoris Jenkins? Janoris Jenkins could very well be a cap casualty, which could, if Jenkins isn't back, it could save you in the neighborhood of $13 million against the cap. So Jenkins isn't going to be back at that number, but do you cut him and re-sign him at a different number, a lesser number perhaps, or does he go test free agency and sign somewhere else? We'll see. Do the Saints use a high draft pick on a cornerback if that's the case? Probably. So you're going to have some shuffling there in the secondary, but by and large, you've got a lot of pieces in place in the secondary, and here's Richard, who's an experienced coach who's been the coach of one of the greatest secondaries we've seen in recent memory. I like this a lot, adding Kris Richard. I think that's a major coup, replacing Aaron Glenn, who followed Dan Campbell to Detroit to be the DC of the Lions. This is a really nice get for Sean Payton on staff. That's who's apparently coming in. And there are also reports today that another Saints coach could be going out. Did you hear this? There's a report from Rob Demovsky. Rob Demovsky is the ESPN NFL Nation Packers reporter. And Rob Demovsky reported that the Packers have the following defensive coordinator interview set for today and tomorrow. That's Tuesday and Wednesday. Jim Leonard from Wisconsin, Chris Kiffin, who's the Browns defensive line coach, Matt Burke of the Eagles, an internal candidate there, and he mentions Ryan Nielsen, the Saints defensive line coach and assistant head coach. So far, they've interviewed Joe Barry, Chris Harris, Jairo Evero, and Bob Sutton. Ryan Nielsen, huh? I'm a little confused by that because isn't the reason that Nielsen didn't take the LSU job because, as so many of you were quick to point out, that he just wants to be the associate head coach in the NFL? Really? Or some of you pointed out, he just loves the Saints organization and wants to be here. Because that was like 2 weeks ago, and now he's interviewing for another job. Did something happen in the last 2 weeks where he just doesn't love the organization anymore? Or there was the kicker when Sean Payton said this.
It's always been, honestly, look, periodically you'll see something that said the Saints denied permission. Occasionally an assistant coach will ask me, look, it's going to be easier for me if you do that because I'm not at that moment in time interested in that job. And I get that.
All right, Pinocchio.
Am I a real boy?
Ryan Nielsen wants to be a head coach. He does not want to be a position coach in the NFL, not even with a glorified title attached to his name. Like I said then, the associate head coach thing, they were able to do because they did not expect, but Dan Campbell left to become the head coach of the Lions. And when he got that job, it allowed them the opportunity to give Nielsen a title and a pay raise, which would satisfy him mildly because you blocked his opportunity to go be a coordinator and make seven figures at LSU. Not easy having a disgruntled employee on your staff. How do you satisfy that? Give him a title, give him some more money, but it doesn't mean that's what he wants. It's not what Nielsen ever wanted. A lot of y'all got uppity, flooding my Twitter account with all that mess. Ryan Nielsen wants to be a head coach. You don't generally become a head coach from a position coach spot. You can point out Dan Campbell, but Dan Campbell had been an interim head coach in Miami. It's a different scenario entirely than someone trying to get their first opportunity. You got to be a coordinator, generally speaking. Nielsen knew that. He had the opportunity at LSU. He was going to make what I was told in the neighborhood of 1.8. He was going to make a really nice salary at LSU, which was about $1 million more than he was making with the Saints. He wanted the job. He told Sean Payton he was taking the job. And Sean Payton said, like hell you are. This is what transpired. And it's why Nielsen is interviewing for Green Bay, because he doesn't want to be an associate head coach. He doesn't want to stay in New Orleans. Those aren't the things that kept him in New Orleans when the LSU job was available. It was Sean Payton blocking that opportunity because Payton didn't want to lose another staffer, which is well within his right contractually, and I'm not mad at him at all for doing it. Sean does that. I talk to people around the organization, around the NFL. Sean does that often. He's blocked Aaron Glenn before. That's not the first time he blocked Nielsen. It's within your right contractually, fine. But everybody's sitting there trying to say, no, Nielsen turned it down. Or Sean Payton sitting there trying to tell you, Nielsen said, oh, it's easier if you just, say that. that you're blocking it. Come on. Come on, y'all. Actions speak louder than words. I tell you that all the time. Look at what's actually happening. Look, I'd love to see Ryan Nielsen stay in New Orleans. He's a great defensive line coach. It's not even debatable. Look at how much the defensive line has improved since Bill Johnson left and when Ryan Nielsen took that job. I mean, let's call it what it is. Look at the development of guys on that line. Look at Trey Hendrickson. Look at Sheldon Rankins. Look at David Onyemata. Look at how much better they've gotten. Nielsen's a really good line coach. I'd love for him to stay. But I also realistically understand he don't want to be a line coach. He wants to be a head coach. So he's pursuing the opportunity that's going to get him there. And it's not being an associate head coach in New Orleans. We'll let you know how those interviews go and if anything transpires there. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.